Oh.
100K is like a great goal to work towards. 100K milestone is the most difficult.
Mm-hmm.
People think that credit card money is free money, but it's really just a
Mm-hmm.
loan with a
Yeah,
very
exactly.
interest rate.
What do you think is the number one thing every grad student or college student should learn about finances, like before graduating? What's up, guys? Welcome to the Physio Diaries podcast. We are your co-hosts, Dr. Melanie Ziaziaris
And Dr. Alice Koshevatskiy, where students, healthcare professionals, and wellness junkies come to get the inside scoop of the healthcare and wellness industry.
The podcast you didn't know you needed, by your favorite travel physical therapist.
Welcome back to the Physio Diaries podcast. Today we are joined by the amazing Lillian Zhang, a financial educator, content creator, and the ultimate hype girl when it comes to helping young professionals take control of their money. Lillian's all about breaking down the intimidating world of finances into something fun, simple, and doable. Because let's be real, no one teaches you about this stuff in school, especially in healthcare. Today, we're diving into the money talk, from saving and investing to building wealth while still living your best life. Grab your coffee or wine if you're feeling it, and let's get into it. We're so excited to talk to you, and we're excited to get into this conversation. Do you want to go ahead and start us off by telling us a little bit about your background and how you eventually just found your way into finance?
I grew up in the Bay Area and I went to university at UC Berkeley where I studied business. I specialize in finance and marketing. So I started creating content on TikTok when I was a senior in college, mainly starting off with college, career, and internship tips, since that was something that was very top of mind for me and other students at the time. And I really loved creating content since I was in middle school and just carried this passion when I started university again. I also worked in the tech industry, which I'm still doing right now after I graduated from UC Berkeley. So I kept on continuing on with the content. I've always been really interested in personal finance. I was the person who would read all the classic personal finance books, watch these YouTubers talk about finance late into the night, and so developed a really strong personal interest in the topic. I realized that a lot of the information that school gives us is telling us how to use our skills to get a job or get a certain career, but we're not often taught what to actually do with the money you earn from your jobs or career and how to set yourself up for a better financial future. So that's definitely something that I'm very passionate about. And speaking about this topic for younger people and Gen Z, since it is something that you said not taught in schools, really.
Yeah.
Totally. I was really excited to have you on because, I mean, we love talking about like salaries and financial stuff on the podcast, but there's just so much to it, especially as healthcare providers. You do not get taught that in grad school. We barely talked about even student loans and stuff like in physical therapy school. Like now you're going into the work field making money, but like what do you do with it and how do you actually build wealth? Like we
Exactly.
don't get taught that. So
School should teach that, should be a mandatory course, in my opinion,
yeah,
but it's just not how we're set up.
definitely.
I had I remember in high school, I had one finance course. It was actually called consumer education. And honestly, they kind of just taught us about bank accounts and how to balance a checkbook and things like that. I feel like that's just not enough. Some of the stuff that we talked about was helpful, but I feel like everyone should know the importance of a 401k, different IRA plans. And I didn't know any of that. And I honestly didn't get into all of this until I was out of grad school, because I felt just so overwhelmed with how much information is out there online. And I would just start looking up videos and trying to read books, and it would just be all too overwhelming for me while also being in school. And what I really like about you is that you make it very manageable for people. And, Gen Zers that we don't necessarily understand all the language of these old textbooks and these principles that don't apply as much as they did 20 years ago, because things are so different now.
It is super different. And one thing that you said was interesting, a lot of older textbooks. I think the same thing applies to other personal finance books and the way perhaps like older generations explain something to us
Mm.
younger folks. If you're like in the Gen Z slash millennial generations, you've gone through a lot of like pivotal moments in your life and career that a lot of other generations haven't experienced, like lower wages, increasing rents, how the student loan crisis is getting bigger. A lot of
Mhm.
former advice that's out there caters to a different time and not at this time.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
a really good point. I cannot wait to dig deeper into that.
Mhm.
Um, but as we were talking about before, like how healthcare programs really don't talk about finances or teach you anything about money. What do you think is the number one thing every grad student or college student should learn about finances, like before graduating?
So everyone's situation is different, but one thing that I believe everyone should understand, whether you're in school, not in school, whatever your situation is understanding your personal cash flow and how that ultimately can contribute forward towards your financial goals. A lot of people have student loans from grad school or undergrad, and understanding what your personal situation around that is, making a plan on how you're going to tackle that after you finish your education, and just understanding like your monthly income once you get a new role, what your expenses are, like what your fixed expenses versus your variable expenses. Tracking that is really important because it is really easy, in my opinion, to live your life in a way that you don't know like what's going on financially. And that can be really stressful if one day you open up your bank account, you realize like where's my money actually going? And just having a plan for yourself and being disciplined with that plan is definitely a skill that everyone should have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I mean, PT school itself is very expensive and a lot of like other graduate programs are very expensive and people come out of it with like hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. And I feel like not everybody realizes that like they need to have a plan moving forward. Like for us, at least, for both of us with, travel PT, we make a little bit more money. So we're actually able to like tackle loans and actually save up more. So like we kind of had a plan going into it. But I feel like some people just don't realize like, okay, like it's just like a loan I'm gonna take out and they'll rent out these like beautiful apartments in Chicago or something. It'll be like, all student loans and they're just racking up debt when they don't realize like, okay, you are going to have to pay this off someday. So it's important, like, if you're going into a graduate program to at least have a long-term plan later on. I really like that, like you talked about how, you were budgeting like in college and you were kind of starting, to help people like while you were still in school. In college and in grad school, we don't have any income coming in, right? Like I worked a little bit as a tech on the side, maybe on
Yeah.
weekends, but I was making minimum wage. So how do you recommend like a poor college student either like budgets or is there something you recommend that they do while in school to kind of set themselves up financially later on?
Yeah, I think when you're in school and in college, it's really different because you're really working off what little that most college students are making. I
Mhm.
definitely like was mostly living off of like the most basic necessities. Obviously didn't have a high standard of living and was okay with that. And I feel like for most college students, including myself when I was in school, my main focus was just to get through this period of time and to learn as much as possible from my education so that when I can have the career that I wanted, it would then like pay for itself. So I'd say even in college, like you're not really making much money for the most part, but just
Mhm.
use that environment to your advantage to invest in yourself and get to the career that you want. In terms of budgeting, to be honest, I didn't really budget a ton in college, but I did like keep a pretty close look at my spending. I didn't really eat out a ton. I tried to cook at home. Like I was just doing all these things that made sense for what I was dealing with at the
Mhm.
time. I think when you're in school, don't be too hard on yourself when it comes to that. There's more opportunities to experience the fruits of your labor when you actually make adult money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were talking about like having more of a plan to set yourself up then when you are out of school, what are some examples of that? Like, do you just mean like budgeting, or do you mean getting into certain, buckets of like funds, and like what was
Yeah.
in the back of your mind when you're saying that?
Yeah, so there's multiple layers to this. The most basic question is like, when you come out of school, like what type of job are you getting? What's the expected salary or income that you'll be making? How much
Mhm.
of that income are you taking in per month? What are your fixed expenses? Like writing everything down and knowing how your money is flowing. That's the first thing.
Mhm.
If you
Mhm.
have student loans or any sort of debt, like how are you sectioning your income to put towards that? Like having a plan for where this money is going. That's the first layer. And the second layer to that is just being aware and actually educating yourself on the basics of personal finance and money, right? So, for example, like this is one of the basic concepts, but when you have savings left over from like your bills and expenses, like where you're actually putting that money. In most
Mhm. Yeah.
cases, you want to put that in something like a high yield savings account where you actually
Mhm.
are making some interest versus just leaving everything in checking account, like building your
Mhm.
credit. How are we doing that? Using a credit card is what most people are doing, like taking advantage of employer sponsored retirement accounts, what to invest in when you have those accounts. So to that part is general education and figuring out like a longer term plan of what your money's doing.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Like allocating your
Mhm.
funds and just knowing where all of the streams are coming from and going to.
Exactly. As simple as that.
Yeah. So I guess going back to like your early 20s, is there any kind of advice or anything you would give yourself looking back, like in terms of
Any
financials?
financial tip like you wish you knew?
Yeah.
For sure. There are definitely several, but something that definitely stood out to me was the use of credit cards and
Mm,
building your credit. It's super important to consider this as early as possible because credit is something that allows you to do many things like getting a car, renting an apartment. A lot of apartments ask for your credit score and do it back when they do your
mhm,
background check, or even getting a job sometimes. That's really important. And something that factors into your credit score is your utilization rate. So if you open a credit
mm,
card, maybe you're allocated like $5,000 to spend. But what a lot of people don't know is that you're not supposed to be using all of your credit utilization. The optimal amount is actually keeping your utilization under 30%.
Mhm.
However, what I've been doing that I found out sometime after I started using my credit cards
mhm,
is if you keep your utilization, like, even lower than 30% and you're, like, paying off the balance, like, every week, for example, your utilization is
mhm,
probably gonna be closer to, like, 0% if you constantly show a value of 0. What these credit bureaus would do is that they'll take a snapshot of what your balance is at your statement date. They take a screenshot of what that is and basically send it to the bureaus to calculate your score, which will change every month. I learned that if you pay off your statement or credit card bill like every week, that's the part that influences your credit score really heavily because that's like a big percentage of your credit score.
Oh,
I've
I
never
didn't,
heard the
yeah,
every week thing. I always
yeah,
assumed just like full statement balance, or like you can pay it off early if you want to boost the credit score, but every week is a new one for me.
yeah, wow.
Yeah, I
Interesting.
definitely am more of like a type A person where I check my like
Yeah.
balance all the time on my phone, like mobile app.
Same, literally same.
Yeah.
Like every day I probably am looking at my accounts.
Yes, if I just see like a credit card balance pop up from my recent purchases from the weekend, I just like scroll and pay it off because why not?
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
yeah,
Well, okay, I like that you brought up just like the credit score and credit cards in general, because I'm always like, why are you using a to people, why are you using a debit card when you can use a credit card and get points? But also the
yeah.
credit score is a thing. Um,
For
and
sure.
so I guess I don't know, when did you guys get your first credit card?
I was 18. I got,
Okay.
like, a starter credit card, which
Oh,
allows you to
wow.
put down, like, a 250 deposit to make sure that you're a reliable borrower, then you prove that you can pay it
Mhm.
off, and then you slowly upgrade
Yeah.
from there, and that's what
Yeah.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanna say I got one maybe when I was, like, 20. My
Okay.
all
I
of
think
my friends in
same.
college had one, and they're like, "How do you not have a credit card yet?" I was like, "I don't know, I have a debit card." At the time, it made sense to me because 'cause I'm like, "I know I have that money,"
Yeah.
and a credit card to me was, like, kinda scary at the time because I was like,
Mhm.
I feel like I'm, spending money that I don't necessarily have, or, like, you could get out of control a lot easier with a credit card versus
Yeah.
debit. I know I can't spend money that I don't have, but at the time, like, I had no financial education, and, like, my parents, they didn't tell me very much, like, I knew they had credit cards, but at the time, I was like, "I'm fine with a debit card, and that's it," but then my friend was like, "You need to get a credit card," and my very first credit card was the Discover It. I think
Oh.
Oh,
it was like there was
classic.
no annual fee, and I was like, "This one's easy." So now I've transitioned to a different credit card, but I heard that it's important to keep your credit card or like your account open because the length of your credit is also going to contribute to like a higher credit score. So is that true?
Yes. So
Okay.
a portion of your credit score is dictated by how long you've had your credit. So even if you come out with a starter credit card that you no longer use,
Hmm.
if it expires, you can cut it up, but don't close the account because that counts towards your overall credit history.
Okay. So it's the length of like the longest like credit history that you have.
Yes, so don't close your
Okay.
first credit card.
Yeah. Okay. I'm so glad I didn't because I was like, I'm not using this anymore. I have a different credit card now, but I was looking online because I was like, I feel like I've heard that on TikTok or something, like not to do that.
Oh, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I always find it really interesting too when like young people in their 20s get into credit card debt because they just like don't know the rules because no one tells you the rules and like what to do and what not to do. Like you saying that you pay it off every week is like wild. And I'm sure people listening to this are going to be like, holy shit, like really? And like you paid off in full. You don't like pay off, the minimum balance. I think that paying off the minimum balance is like one of the biggest scams they have for people.
That's a
Mhm.
whole 'nother topic. Reason why I'm so confident with the whole idea of paying off every week is because I know only spending money that I have. If I have a
Mhm.
$20,000 credit limit, I'm not gonna be going out and, like, blowing it all up.
Yeah.
I think the message for a lot of people is people think that credit card money is free money, but it's really just a
Mhm.
loan with a
Yeah.
very
Exactly.
interest rate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. People have multiple credit cards for this reason, but it's just so easy to just tap, tap, tap. And the
Mhm.
minimum balance, like it's like $25 or something.
Yeah.
So like it's not intimidating when you see like you could pay it in full or just pay your minimum balance, but people don't realize like how high credit interest is. And that's how these credit card companies make money off of you. Like people like us, because I pay mine off monthly, but I want to try to do weekly, but I always pay my credit card off, and credit card companies call us like deadbeats because they're not making money off of us. Yeah, my
Oh,
boyfriend told
damn.
me. I know, my boyfriend told me that term, and I was like, "I'm happy to be a deadbeat, like, that's
Yeah.
okay." But a lot of people, like, don't realize, like, how easy it is to get into, like, credit card debt because of the crazy high interest rates.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know something else that I learned, like, a while ago?
Tell
Mhm.
You
us.
know those fancy reward credit cards that get you all the free stuff?
Like
So
the
they
Yeah.
Sapphire Reserves and the
yes, like, they take
Amexes.
like, they have the annual fees,
Yeah.
but there are so many more people paying interest every month than the amount of money it takes for these companies to provide you the free benefits, that the
Oh.
people who are not paying their credit cards are technically how some of these credit cards get the money to pay for these luxury benefits on top of your annual fee, of course. But that was, like, something
Mhm.
interesting that I read a while
That
ago.
is interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I'm not
wild.
surprised though, because there's people are in like hundreds of thousands of dollars of credit card debt that like them being able to give out these perks for their members is like nothing to them because these credit card companies make so much money off of the people that don't pay. in
Yeah.
full.
Yeah, it's like a really interesting system. And I think
Mhm.
some people might think it's unethical because technically the more well-off are like using this other people who are not paying are funding their luxuries. But
Mhm.
I say don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yep.
We're in a situation where you are very responsible and you can't afford these higher end credit cards and the benefits that come with it, then go do it. It's a product out there that you can
Mhm.
use and it's
Yeah.
free will. So
Right. Just know
Totally.
what game you're getting into.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's actually really interesting, really, I was gonna say, is had people that were visiting from out of the country in France. And to them, the concept of a credit card, like they do not have credit
Wait,
cards.
really?
And that was crazy to me.
Wait, they
Like,
don't have credit cards in France?
I'm pretty
No.
sure that's what they were wait, Hippo.
What?
Okay, he's sleeping. But they were the concept of like a credit card to them was crazy. They're like, how can you
Huh.
spend money like you don't have? And that was wild to me because I was like, oh, is that just like, I don't know, an American thing? Like,
Oh,
but they just don't really use credit cards. Like it's
oh, I
not
see.
very common.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's definitely a
Yeah.
very American heavy system. I think other
Mm-hmm.
countries do have credit systems, but it's not as heavily
As
reliant
common.
as Americans.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we were telling them, we're like, everybody here has, if you're an adult, like you have a credit card. Like you have to build your credit. And like we were explaining the concept of like a credit score and everything. And it was like totally different. So
Wow.
that was
Yeah.
How
just
interesting.
crazy. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, to sum it up for our listeners, some credit card tips and credit score tips.
Mhm.
Pay the statement balance in full at least every month if you can get on Lillian's level every week. Um, keep
Never
it at
minimum. Never pay the minimum.
yes, never pay the minimum. Keep it under at minimum under 30% utilization, but the lower the better. Keep it open. Don't ever close them. Even
Mhm.
if you only spend like charge $100 a month to them, just keep it open is what I got from that. Any other big tips I am forgetting?
Don't spend more on a credit card than what you have
Mm.
in your bank account.
Yes, that is a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, that is good. All right. We did a little bit of like stalking of your social media over the last few weeks. We saw one video that said that you said like 100K in savings is a key milestone. And it's not just you that we've heard this from, like a lot of like finance books. My boyfriend's super into like finance books too, but um he was saying too, like he's heard that like 100K is like big milestone in savings. So can you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah. So this term was coined if you follow like the investing world, Charlie Munger, who was an associate of Warren Buffett. He has a
Mhm.
famous quote where he says the first 100K is a beach, but you got to do it. So that's his famous quote. And I believe that's where the main figure came from. But granted, this was decades ago when he said that. So like the real figure is probably like
Mhm.
200K. But
Oh.
100K is like a great goal to work towards, no matter what your situation is currently. And it's because the 100K milestone is the most difficult.
Mhm.
So when you save your first 100K, it's purely based off the work and the labor that you first put in.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Because in personal finance, there's a lot of emphasis on investing to grow your wealth, to get to like retirement figure numbers, which you can dive into later.
Mhm.
But 100K, you're not reliant or you're not really making the first 100K from your investment returns.
Mhm.
If you have, for like this example, like $10,000 saved up and you invest the money, your return is barely $1,000 versus someone who already has 100K can invest the same amount of money and get like an almost $10,000 return.
Mhm.
The first 100K is just a lot more difficult because you're putting in a lot of sweat and tears to actually just like get to that point. Once you
Yeah.
pass that, you're obviously likely still to be working, but it's easier to get to the next milestone because the capital that you accumulate will create more money.
Mhm.
That's what they say. when it comes
That
to
makes sense because, like, early on, you're working and you're saving up that money, like, that you made off of your paycheck versus
Mhm.
later on, the money just, like, compounds because you're putting that aside and they say, like, your money is working for you. So
Yes.
it makes sense that early on, that's really hard to do, like, to save because you
Yeah.
just don't have those investments yet.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
So then let's say, right, someone who's listening to this, they get their first 100K in savings, but where is it all going? And are you putting it into like different buckets?
Yeah, so everyone sort of has a different definition to this, but when I think of 100K in savings, it's more like 100K in assets.
Okay.
And so I divide this up into like, for example, my company's retirement plan, like 401K. If
Okay.
we're investing through that, that's an asset that goes towards this number because it's invested and can compound over time. It also includes your cash slash your emergency fund, your investment accounts, basically anything that's considered an asset that has the ability to make more money for you using that capital.
Okay.
Mhm.
Feel free to answer this how you want, but when you did your first 100K in savings, where exactly did you put that money? So you said 401K is one of the buckets. What are the other buckets you did?
Oh, yes. Of course, like my regular checking account where I keep money for my bills, but I always try to move my money around um, in excess of bills to make sure the money's always, quote, working for me. So I have a high yield savings account. I also
Mhm.
started doing a Roth IRA when I was in university. So I have that account. I also have a regular taxable brokerage for the excess money that I don't want to lock up for retirement. So those were the main accounts that I had when I first hit my first 100K in savings slash assets.
So, really quick, going back to like the different types of accounts. Recently, I did a little bit more research, but like probably 2 years ago, I had not much of a clue of what a 401k was, Roth IRA, traditional IRA, or like even a high yield savings. So, can you talk about like those different types of accounts and what they are?
Yeah, for sure. So high yield savings account, the shorthand of that is HYSA. And it's an account offered mostly by online banks where if you put your
Mhm.
money into them and it's as easy as transferring your money from your checking to your saving to your high yield savings account, essentially it gives you a higher percentage rate that you earn on your money versus leaving it in a regular national savings account where they basically give you like 0.01. So the rate on this account
Mhm.
is changing depending on the Fed's interest rates and what they're setting it as, but it's usually like right now it's like 3.8% depending on where you go.
Mhm.
Back when the economy was different, it was as high as like 4.5 and they were having like crazy rates, but now it's
Yeah.
lower.
Mhm.
I also use CDs, so certificate of
Oh, you
deposit.
do. Mm.
Yes, so that is very similar to an HYSA that
Mhm.
many banks actually have. They offer really good returns on short-term to medium-term goals that you have for your money. But the only downside is that they lock your money up for a period of
Mm.
several months, depending on the terms you choose. And so this is great if you have a savings goal like a car or a house, and you know that you're not going to be touching this money for at least 6 months. That is also a solution for your money. In terms of investment accounts, oh, do you have a question?
I did, yeah. Cause to me, I guess I just like what would be the biggest difference between a CD and a high yield savings? Because do CDs have like a higher percentage yield back than like a high yield savings? Or like what would be the
Oh, yeah.
difference in
I
going
forgot
one
to
over the
mention this
other?
previously, but since CDs like lock your money up and you can't take it out within a certain time frame, the rates are going to be slightly higher than the
Okay.
HYSA. If you know you're not going to touch this money or need it within some whatever time that your terms are, then it's a good place to place that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
more for like a long-term investment versus like high yield savings, you can use it a little bit more readily. like CDs like locked away?
Yeah, CDs are locked away, but they're not really an investment. If you're like
Mm-hmm.
really trying to invest your money for like the long-term horizon, then you're better off investing in like a brokerage account.
Okay, gotcha.
For the accounts you were mentioning, like 401k, this is an account that employers offer to you if you like work at this specific company, or not companies offer it. You have to be a full-time employee. That's the main terms of the account. I think in a lot of health settings and public office settings is called the 403b, where
Oh,
it's
I never heard of that.
same. It's called a 403b, where it's the same purpose, but if it's like a government funded institution, that's what they use, but it's the same thing. Every time you get a paycheck, you can funnel a percentage of your paycheck to this account. And a lot of employers have policies where if you put a certain part of your salary, they'll also match you a certain part of the salary that you put in. So it is an incentive that the government provides us to keep this account open. This is kind of going on a tangent, but the government has these incentives for you to invest in your retirement because in their ideal world, they don't want to be giving you money. They want to be incentivizing you to invest for your own retirement so that you can pay for your own retirement. The government doesn't have to do that for you. The government incentivizes us to do things like investing for retirement. And in return, by investing in your 401k, you get a tax break on your income each year that you put your money in. So you won't get taxed when you put the money in, but once you pull your money out from the 401k, X many years later, you'll be then taxed on the money you take out. And so the Roth IRA is a different retirement account that's also incentivized by the government for you to invest for retirement, where you put in your after-tax dollars and you let that grow and compound, invest, and then once you take it out in retirement, you're not taxed on anything. That's why there's so much emphasis for young people to invest in an IRA, because if you have 30 years for it to grow, it's gonna be worth a lot more when you actually retire. So that's the sum up of the two main retirement accounts.
And so I was going to say one thing that I wish I did sooner was we talked about the credit card, and the second one was the Roth IRA.
Yes,
Because
same.
there's an online calculator that I used, and you
Yeah,
can
it's good.
type in the time or the date when you opened up that account, and the sooner you can start, the better, because that money is just growing. And like you said, like you mentioned, once you take it out, you don't have to pay taxes because you already paid the taxes when you put the money in. And yeah, just the sooner you can start, the better. And that's something I wish I started like, I don't
Same.
know, when I was like 18 or something. There's a limit to how much you can put in. I think now it's like
Yeah, it's
7,000
7,000.
in the year. But even if you can put even the least, like a little tiny bit, if you're in college, I think like that with time will continue to grow. And I just wish that was something that I did.
Yeah, we literally, me and Alice have the same financial advisor. And so we talk about all of this stuff with him. But that, was one thing where I was like, damn, why did no one tell me about this shit? Like I could have been putting in just like $100 a month, even when I was like in undergrad, and it could have been accumulating. But yeah, so if you don't have a Roth,
unless
I know.
someone
Yeah, like I don't think I even heard the words Roth IRA until I was like in PT school and like got into the financial like interweb online, like trying to learn myself.
Oh yeah,
Well,
for sure.
yeah, and I feel like I just had this assumption that I couldn't open up a Roth IRA until I was like a full-time employee, like
True.
I just thought that you have to be like working full-time to open one of those, but that
But
is
you
not
don't.
true either. Yeah. So that's the thing. If you're listening to this, open up that account and literally you can put a little bit amount of money, like as much as you can at this point in time, and just leave it and it'll grow. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
So
it's very powerful.
yeah. But speaking of our financial advisor, do you yourself have a financial advisor?
So I personally do not have a financial advisor, and I've never had one ever.
Wow. Is that because you feel like you have like a good background in the area and you kind of, I don't know,
Do it
can
yourself.
handle it on your own?
Yeah.
Oh yes, I feel like definitely a big part of it is I'm a very DIY person. So since
Mhm.
I've learned about this when I was in college, I felt like I had a pretty strong grasp of the topics. I never felt the personal need to have a financial advisor. And I would
Mhm.
say that the majority of people don't need one unless if you have an extremely complicated situation. Um, but there are also a lot of other options online if you need some sort of help. For example, something that a lot of people go to their advisor for is to have them invest their funds.
Mhm.
There are platforms like Wealthfront or Betterment that are sort of like robo advisors that kind of do it for you for a slightly larger fee if that's really something you don't want to touch or worry about. If you do end up going to an advisor because it's overwhelming or you just have a lot of personal questions, something I
Mhm.
would definitely look out for is a fiduciary or fee only advisors where they take fees based off the service they provide you and not
Oh, yeah.
percentage of your assets. Because the percentage of your assets is something that can be really like a big snowball effect. Not necessarily your assets, but like the percentage
Mhm.
management fees they take from investing your money is a really big percentage if you add up the dollar amounts over the number of years you were with this advisor. So that's something to keep
So
in mind.
so you're saying to look out for if they take a percentage of your earnings and like it's okay if it's like you pay them a one-time fee to help you
Yeah,
versus like they take a percentage of your earnings.
exactly.
Okay. Gotcha. You mentioned there was a lot of resources out there. You yourself are coming out with a book in November, is that correct?
Yes, November 11th.
Okay.
Mhm.
Nice. Okay. So that's coming up.
Yeah, it's called The New Money Rules, the Gen Z Guide to Personal Finance. I did my
Mhm.
pre-order launch posts a few weeks ago. By the time you're listening to this, it's probably been about a month since I initially announced this. It's a resource that I wish I had when I was learning about personal finance because we discussed that school doesn't really teach us a lot of these things. And when it
Mhm.
does come down to it, there are so many like pieces of information that if you're a DIY person like me, you're like piecing together things, but that
Mhm.
a really long time and not everyone has the energy to do that. Some of the older generations who talk about personal finance or financial concepts in textbooks or on the internet don't understand or haven't been through a lot of the economic realities that us young people are facing through right now. So I also
Mhm.
wrote this book from the perspective of someone in Gen Z myself and speaking to someone like in our age group about financial topics and how to set yourself up for success if you're like just starting out. So it's definitely something that is missing in the like book slash personal finance space, which is why I wrote it. It talks a lot about like the stories and anecdotes that a lot of young people are facing. I've pulled my community on some of the biggest problems that they feel like they're facing in this economy and just like making it more fun and relatable for someone who's reading, whether they're in high school, college, grad school, or in the workforce, and just making it more accessible for people who didn't have these resources in their school or growing up. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that is the premise of the book. It's currently available for pre order, and we have some pre order incentives for people who order early, and you'll be the first to get it once it comes out.
Amazing.
Awesome. That's really cool because I feel like you have a wealth of knowledge and I don't know, it's cool that you were able to put it all together in one place, and I would love to check your book out because that sounds like exactly what I need. Like I mentioned before, it can be, at least personally for me, it's very overwhelming just even like talking about finances. Like you're always like, am I doing the right thing? And I don't know all of this like finance lingo because we're in the healthcare
Mhm.
field. We don't know that stuff. So I'm really excited because I definitely want to check out your book and I will absolutely pre-order it.
Oh, thank you so much for the
Yeah,
support.
we'd love to support you.
Definitely help
Yes.
people.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I mean, from a perspective of like someone in the age group as well, I think is huge because that there definitely is a difference between like, let's say, a baby boomer versus a Gen Z are talking about it.
For sure.
Mhm.
It definitely makes it more relatable. My entire catchphrase for this is for Gen Z by Gen Z because it's for the
Mhm.
audience and written by a Gen Z author who understands what this audience is going through. So that's definitely a big differentiating factor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. Times are so different than they were like for our grandparents. I've seen a lot of posts or it's like a joke. They're like, "Oh, like you didn't start saving up for your house like the day that you were born," like cuz a lot
Exactly.
of people are like, "Why are you not a homeowner yet?" I'm like, "Have you seen the housing prices? Like it's absolutely crazy."
I
So,
know.
it's like it's a totally different time than it was for them. Like
Yeah.
I know at least like in California like where I am, a lot of people that bought houses like 30, 40 years ago, like their house, the price that they bought it for, it's like a quarter the price that it is now. And a lot
Yeah.
of people say, like, if you move out of California, you're probably not going to be coming back because the housing market is just crazy now.
I should have bought a house when I was in the womb.
I know.
Yeah, literally. Literally, like, should have bought a house in 8th grade.
Yeah.
Um,
Should have started a Roth IRA. Should have opened up a credit card the day I was born.
Start these like smaller things is to start now.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's like the big theme is like do it today. And honestly, for the longest time, I was thinking about opening up a Roth IRA, but I just don't know if I was like overwhelmed with the idea or like just intimidated by it. And then when I did, I was like, that was so easy. Like it's so simple to just do it and open it, but just push yourself and like use this podcast as like the sign to do it now.
Yes, especially if you are a healthcare student.
Yes.
What is one mindset shift about money that like changed the game for you?
Yeah, so in terms of mindset shifts, when I was first like working and making money, I thought that I had to save as much as possible and only like spend on the bare necessities. But as I've been starting to grow a bit more in my career and stuff that I'm doing, it's equally as important to invest in yourself, whether that's in terms of your health as well as other resources that can make you more money and help increase your earning potential. And some more tangible examples of this are things like networking events. I've personally been going to more like industry events that have helped
Mhm.
me to create more connections, learn more about the stuff in this industry, and create more relationships because especially if you're in a field that deals with like working with people and working with others, like the relationships can really help you in terms of the types of opportunities that you get access to. That's one thing that I've been investing more into. And other examples can include things like better equipment that you can do a better job or be more productive, like certain courses to enhance your skills. And so to sum up the point, I feel like it's equally as important to invest in yourself compared to actually investing your dollars, if that makes sense.
Mhm. When you say you're trying to do more like networking events and stuff, where are you like finding these things? Because I think for a lot of people listening, like, yeah, that sounds cool, but like, how do you actively do it?
I mostly go to events in like the tech slash creator economy space because that's just where my work is based in. And
Mhm.
so I follow a lot of people on LinkedIn who are constantly posting events and just like curating
Okay.
my like feed over time. It's definitely
Hmm.
not like an overnight thing, but there are so many like event platforms that are popping up like Luma. If you go to
Yeah.
like the event section, they're always posting new events that are open to the public and stuff.
Hmm.
Like even Eventbrite, they have a lot of stuff and like
Oh, really?
Mhm.
things that are going on and just like word of mouth through Instagram, people
Okay.
post stuff. So mostly I'd say through those means,
Gotcha.
and like
Mhm.
through any networks that you have.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Luma. I don't think I've heard of that. That's
It's like
interesting.
a
I'll have to
more
look into it.
newer startup, but they're focused on like
Mm.
events and gatherings.
Yeah,
Oh,
I like that.
cool.
That's a good idea. We definitely need more of
Yeah.
that.
We did one event last year. It was like for the podcast, and we brought like we had a bunch of people from like all different professions, like all over the city. We don't really get to interact with a lot of like our listeners face to face. And so that was like our big first event. And it was just so fun. I feel like it really made me realize like this is why we do what we do, because like we've met these people and now like we're kind of like social media friends, and it just kind of helps to grow your network. And I feel like I don't know if you feel the same way with like social media. Like sometimes you feel like you're not out of touch, but I guess it's hard to like connect with your viewers sometimes and kind of see like what they
Yeah.
want. So it was really nice to do that like first event and be like, wow, like we're actually making an impact and these are like actual real people. So that was really nice for me.
Oh
No,
yeah.
I totally agree. I also just
Yeah.
think the community event space is just got smaller, but is now trying to regrow again just because of obviously COVID affected a lot of things. And then just like the world
Yeah.
of social media, everything's fucking online and not in person. So I feel like we're going back to that community based and like actually going out and
Mhm.
doing things again.
That's an interesting
Yeah.
trend. I think people are, especially with like AI and stuff, people want more like human to
Yeah.
human connection that
Yeah,
feels genuine.
for
Exactly.
sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, Lillian. Well, we want to end with a little fun rapid fire game. So this is just going to be questions, and whatever comes to the top of your head, just feel free to say it.
Yes. Go for it.
All right. What's something bougie you unapologetically budget for?
For me, it's definitely travel and experiences because I definitely
Yes.
feel like that's something that you carry your memories forever. So I love investing in that. I love a
Ooh.
five-star hotel moment.
Love
What's your
that.
favorite 5-star hotel you've been to? Or do you
I've
have
been
one?
to a few of the hotels in Europe. It's called like the NH Collection. So it's like a European chain.
Love
And
it.
Okay, nice.
I think we can all relate on travel.
Yeah, splurging on travel, absolutely.
Literally, we're both like planning trips. Alice is planning a big Europe trip. I'm going on a
Mhm.
trip next week.
oh
Yeah.
wow, to where?
Miami and the Bahamas.
Wow,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
fun.
And then
Sunny.
I'm taking a month off and I'm going to Spain, France, and then Mallorca. So definitely
Wow, a
splurging a
month
little
off.
bit, but I've been
Amazing.
saving, so we're okay.
Yes, yes, save for your goals.
Yes.
All right. You get a surprise $1,000. Do you save it, invest it, or book a trip?
Invest it.
Okay. Facts. I like that. Oh, what would you invest it in?
I mostly invest in ETFs and index funds, so probably just throw it into the same bucket that I usually
Yeah,
have.
totally.
Mhm.
First thing you'd cut from your budget in a crunch.
Most likely new clothes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
What's a money mindset mantra you live by?
So this is not exactly a money mantra, but applies to money. And it's the idea that your daily actions are compounded and add up significantly over time. This applies to your investments, but also applies to the goals that you have and what you're doing day to day. Because I think we underestimate what we can do in a year and overestimate what we can do in a week or a month.
Yeah.
And if you just do something consistently and do a little bit every day, you'll see big results a year later or sometime later. But you just have to put in the consistent work. So that's what I live by. That's money related.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
What's something that's in your cart right now, but you haven't hit the checkout button yet?
Ooh, that's a fun question. To be honest, I really don't shop a lot online. The only time I really online shop is for new clothes and electronics, to be honest. And like your occasional
Ooh.
like toiletry stuff. So
Okay. Skincare.
not really skincare because as a
Okay.
career I get skincare milk.
Oh, yes. Fair. Totally.
But I like shopping at this one store called Cezanne, which is where I got those
Oh,
jeans
yeah.
from. So I
Yes.
usually have like maybe a dress or something in the cart, and then I like think about it. Well, yes.
Yeah. I was literally thinking I was going through like Paris TikTok because I'm going to be in Paris for a couple days, and Cezanne is on my list because it's cheaper, I think, in France than to buy it in the States. So I'm like, I'm already there.
Oh
So I'm
yeah.
planning to
Might
go to
as
France
well.
with like half an empty suitcase and come back with like a bunch of stuff. But
That
I'm
could
like,
be the
girl
bad
math, I'm
refund.
saving money because it's cheaper over there.
Exactly.
Finance trend you wish people would stop falling for.
Girl math. It's
It was a joke. It was a
trend, but I
joke.
think it's still applied.
She-
Still applied.
I mean, as a joke, I justify like financial decisions saying girl math, but like, you know, a lot of people take that seriously.
Oh
And they're
yeah,
like,
that's
oh,
what I
girl math,
meant.
I
Just take it
saved money.
seriously. Yeah.
Yes.
Won't take
Yeah.
it seriously.
Yeah. And I'm like, girl, like the math is not mathing.
Okay, last question. Finish this sentence. Financial freedom feels like.
Peace of mind.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for playing along. We love financial freedom and financial literacy.
Thank you
Yes.
so much for having me. If you're interested in financial resources, definitely pre-order the new money rolls. The link will be down in the show notes.
Yes.
Yes. We will put the link on our social media as well, and in the show notes. So you guys can check it out and pre-order it now.
Yes.
Yay.
All right, Lillian. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. You seriously make Money Talk feel so much less intimidating and way more empowering, especially for those that this might be their first time hearing some of the things we talked about. So, for all of our listeners, if you're ready to take control of your finances and start building the life you want, go check out by Lillian Zhang on Instagram. Her content is super like digestible. I honestly just like binge watch her page because you could be on there for hours.
Well, that's
Yes.
the compliment ever. Thank you so much for having me. It was super fun to chat with you.
Yes. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow or subscribe so you get notified when the next week's episode drops. And don't forget to leave a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple so we can keep having these amazing conversations. So until next time, keep moving, keep growing, and keep building your dream life one step and one smart money move at a time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.